Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of And Yet We Believe. We are a married couple having honest conversations about the beautiful, messy middle of Latter-day Saint life. We're glad you're here with us today. What are we talking about?
We are 1 month out from the second hour change, where it's going from alternating weeks to like half an hour each of Sunday school and Elders Quorum Relief Society.
Half an hour is giving it a little much.
25 minutes. And how are we feeling about that?
TBD. I don't know.
I think, it's one of those things where it kind of feels like a big deal. It also doesn't feel like that big of a deal. Mm-hmm. It's still the same amount of instruction time. It's just formatted differently.
Yeah. When this change was announced in March, I think it was.
A while ago, yeah.
I put some questions out in my stories and polls and stuff and got a lot of responses of what people think about this. And so we'll share some of those later as we get into this.
Yeah.
So should we jump in?
Yeah. So the last time we had a real change to the block was 7 years ago. It was 2019, and that's when it went to the 2-hour block.
Yeah.
A blessed day.
Right. That was a huge deal.
It was a big deal.
Yeah.
So the last really material change before that, there had been new manuals introduced and kind of little things. The last real change before that was going to the 3-hour block in 1980.
Yeah. From multiple days, right?
Or going in the morning and going at night. This is before our time, so...
Yeah, the Relief Society met on a day, primary was on a day,
yeah.
They consolidated it all into one day.
Yep.
And only one time, only went one time in the
Now
day.
there was a block, all of it was together.
Yeah.
Now, I had always heard that change was to benefit people who lived far away.
Yeah.
From the church, and especially outside of Utah, as the church grew outside of Utah.
Yes.
Is that what you heard?
Yeah, there's a story in the global histories of the church of a couple in Jamaica, and they would drive around and pick up all of their people in a bus.
Okay.
And a big van sort of thing. And they were doing it multiple times every day and in the week, and it was very expensive for them and hard to do that. So that was part of the change, was this couple in Jamaica that was please no, this is too much.
This is our whole life.
Yeah.
Now, when I was researching this, I found something else also that was interesting. I had never heard this, but I read that it was to save energy during the energy crisis in the 1970s and 1980s.
Interesting.
So people would be driving to church less. I'd never heard that.
Yeah.
That was kind of an interesting little tidbit. I don't know. I don't know if it's right or wrong.
Yeah.
That's just what I read.
So these are examples of not revelation having an impact and change on the church.
Absolutely.
The church is aware of our needs and has made changes in the past to accommodate members.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're looking at is the next change to the block, to our meetings, and it's not going to be the last one.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put that out there. It will change again at some point. So as for right now, there's been a lot of chatter about how the lessons will be so short.
Yeah.
They each have 20 minutes, and you kind of have to have some intro into the lesson, and by the time you get into the meat of it, you don't have much time left. Lots of questions about how we'll make it all fit, but that's not really what we want to talk about.
Yeah, the structure of the Sunday meetings doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
The point of church, the point of our Sunday meetings is to make sure that we talk about Jesus, to strengthen our testimonies, help us remember Jesus, and to be in community with people.
Yeah.
There's a great scripture in Mark 2:27, and I particularly picked out the translation from the NLT, the New Living Translation. I really like it. It says, "The Sabbath was made to meet the needs of the people, and not people to meet the requirements of the Sabbath."
Ooh.
Isn't that great?
I can picture the original verse, the wording in my mind. I like that a lot.
I do too. And so the religious structure, the structure of our Sabbath meetings is meant to bless people. It was created for us.
Right.
We are not created to go fill in as cogs what happens on a Sunday. There's a quote by a woman named Marva J. Dawn from her book, Keeping the Sabbath Holy, and holy is WHOLLY.
Nice.
So completely, not Holy, H-O-L-Y.
Nice.
She says, a great benefit of Sabbath keeping is that we learn to let God take care of us. Not by becoming passive and lazy, but in the freedom of giving up our feeble attempts to be God in our own lives. I really like that we need to learn how to let God take care of us. And when you think about that in going to church, attending church, that is very relational. It's showing up to let God feed you and speak to you and to give you the revelation that you need and to like bless your life in that moment so that you can then go on into your week and do something with what God tells you.
I wish I was approaching more Sundays with that mindset.
Yeah.
I mean, we're trying to get kids ready for church and get out the door and all those things. Boy, that's really good. And it, you know, the contrast of that is that I spent so much of my life thinking that attending church, thinking that attendance was the same thing as discipleship. Thinking that going to church was the important, either it was the important thing or it was the measure. If you were going to church, then you were righteous. And when somebody stopped going to church, oh my gosh, that was the end.
Yeah, they've fallen off the deep end.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what do you think? I think that people often think, like you're saying, that just showing up is the important part.
Right.
If we are showing up and not learning about Jesus, what is the point?
I mean, you can make the argument that then the social connection is the point or something like that. That seems a lot weaker than we go to have a spiritual experience, to have a worship experience when we're at church.
Yeah. So here's a question for you. What do you think the second hour structure, how it's changing, what do you think that teaches us about what the church thinks matters? Like, what are they placing as a priority by what we're seeing in this change?
Yeah, I love this. So we talked about something similar on the podcast before when we talked about the layout of like the chapel. And going to a Catholic church where the altar that holds the sacrament of the Eucharist is in the middle. Yeah. That's kind of the focal point. We have it off to the side. And it's like, well, what does that communicate? Yeah. What is the lack of Jesus art on the walls?
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah. And so what's being communicated, what's kind of being alluded to in this change, I do like that sacrament meeting becomes the longest meeting. And it does kind of draw some attention to, here's why we're at church. So I like that part of what it communicates.
Yeah. I think that having the classes, what I'm hoping from this is that the church is saying that education, religious education, is important. And that having discussion and bringing your questions and, all of that, I hope that what they're saying is that matters and that what you're doing at home matters and we want to hear about it at church as a ward. What I'm hoping is not the case, and what it maybe feels like has been the case, is that repeating correlated information is what matters. Because so many of the people, and maybe this speaks to some of our teachers sometimes across the wards that we've had for years, so many of the people would just get up and say, okay, I'm supposed to talk about this talk. They started the talk by blah, 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 and then they said this, and then they told this story. And it's like, cool, I heard it when it came out, and I read it after. I don't need you to just regurgitate it to me. Right. Or they'll do the same thing with the Come Follow Me lesson. Well, the manual wants us to start by saying blah, 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 and now we're going to read this scripture that it pointed out. That, like, I feel like we have had this record in the church of just taking what is given and giving it verbatim.
That meeting could have been an email.
Right. We all have the lesson manual on our phones. Like, we don't need to come and have someone read it to us. And so I really hope that we are going to change how we are approaching the manuals, what we do with them, what conversations we have, what discussions we can bring out of them. I hope that we are seeing a change, and that means that the church is saying, we need to change how we do lessons. The spirit is kind of gone from them. We need to switch this around a bit.
Okay. So let's dig into the 3 different things that happen during second hour. Okay. And by that I mean Sunday school, of course, and then Elders Quorum and Relief Society as separate things.
So for adults, obviously.
The adult things.
Clearly there's things for children and youth, but we're not going to focus on that.
Yeah, so if we start with Sunday school, I think we can start with Sunday school because it's, I think, the easiest one to define and understand. Mm-hmm. This is about gospel instruction. Yeah. It's called school. Like that, it has a, I think, singular purpose. It's pedagogical by design. I did a little research on the history of it. The Latter-day Saint Sunday School was started by Richard Ballantyne in 1849. He had been a Presbyterian Sunday school teacher.
Awesome.
And then he joined the church and was like, hey, I'm going to start a Sunday school, which meant for kids. Mm-hmm. That's what it was for originally. And so he taught kids about the gospel. It became a church-wide thing later in 1867 and has existed ever since. We have Sunday school.
Yeah. He's my third great-grandfather.
Well, there you go.
You're welcome, everyone.
Nice work.
I actually was just listening to a podcast with Anne Lamott, and she was talking about how she was a Sunday school teacher. And I was like, cool, because when I hear that, I think of adult classes. And she was like, yeah, in my classes, I can have anyone from like 4 years old to 15. And I was like, oh, she was a kid Sunday school teacher. Like, that's different.
Yeah,
and
that's a different thing.
And it made me think about what she was saying in a different way to hear it, about kids. And I don't know in other Christian faiths if what it looks like for adult Sunday school. Like, is that more just a Bible study? Do you think?
Maybe so.
I don't know.
I have no context for that.
Yeah. I don't either. Yeah. So in Sunday school and Elders Quorum and Relief Society, kind of like what I was saying before, teaching is not the same thing as talking. Like we cannot just have these lessons that we have been having for years now, decades, where there's an introduction, there's historical background and context given for things, there's personal stories added in, there's tons of quotes, like, when you're getting number 12, you're not going to get to it, you don't have to actually read, that sort of thing. Breaking out into groups, please let that be gone. It hurts my my heart to do those sometimes. My little introverted heart. Yeah. So, there are things that we will have to change. And how many lessons have we been in where it's like, all right, we've got 2 minutes left. What does this teach you about Jesus? Or like, finally Jesus comes into the lesson in the last 2 minutes. So I'm hoping that there will be a change in how we teach these lessons. I will say when this change was announced, I told you that we had, I put some stories out asking people, what they were thinking. And I did a poll on what are you most concerned about with this change. Yeah. The number one concern was that there would only be surface level lessons. The second concern, biggest concern, was that there would be no time for a lesson. And the third concern was that there would be no deep connection.
Oh, interpersonally.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Now, I think this is actually really fascinating because I wonder if this gives an insight into what people are already concerned is missing from classes.
Oh, interesting.
That we're only getting surface level lessons. Mm-hmm. We're not doing anything deep. We don't have enough time. There's no deep connection with people. I wonder, if that's already the concern, is a 25-minute lesson going to amplify the problems that we're already having? Because people won't pivot. They won't know how to kind of get around the way you teach a lesson.
Right. I mean, theoretically, when the home-centered church concept came out, that should have already changed Sunday school. Yeah. We no longer need to cover all the material because there's home study going on, so this can kind of supplement. But I don't know that Sunday school really changed.
No.
When that changed.
I don't feel like it did because we've had so many lessons that are okay, we have 12 chapters to cover. Here, they each get 3 minutes, and
we're taking no comments because we've got so much to cover.
Yeah. So I really hope that sort of thing will change. I think that one thing that could be really interesting that I wish I had thought of this. My Relief Society counseled about how are we going to do this? How are we going to change and have meaningful lessons? just this last Sunday. And I wish I had thought of this, but the practice of Lectio Divina would be really, really interesting to do for a Sunday school lesson. Pick a verse or a passage, a short, like 3 or 4 verses. And what Lectio Divina is, you read it one time and you notice any words that stand out to you. And you talk about that and you figure that out, or you journal about it, whatever, if you're doing it personally or in a group. Then you read it again and you see what else stands out to you, what means something different this time. And you do it over and over and over. And that could be the whole 25-minute lesson, especially when you've got Joe over here saying this means this to me, and me saying, well, this word popped out to me, and all these people sharing what something meant to them.
But we can't do that because we have to cover all the material.
No. Au contraire, we do not. So if you want to take a Lectio Divina lesson into your wards, I think it would be great.
It'd be awesome. Let us know how it goes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's Sunday school. So let's talk about Relief Society for a minute. And I'm gonna tee this one off for you.
Okay.
Tee it up for you.
We're not golfers.
I don't know the metaphor. Okay, and the idea here that Relief Society originally was not just a class. Mm-hmm. It was an organization. It was an institution. They ran midwifery and nursing programs. They built hospitals. They formed cooperatives. They had a grain storage program.
That was helping worldwide in the early 1900s.
They worked for suffrage, kind of notably. They had their own newspaper. Mm-hmm. They funded their own budget through fundraising. They wrote their own curriculum. They elected their own local leaders. Mm-hmm. Like the General Relief Society president was still called. Yeah. But locally it was different. And then things started to change with kind of the correlation movement. In 1970, the responsibility for fundraising and welfare, all of these things moved to church committees.
Yeah, our magazine was taken away.
In 1971, all women 18 and up just were automatically enrolled. It was no longer like a thing that you would join.
Yeah.
In 1978, the wheat storage program ended, and they handed over like almost $2 million to the first presidency and a whole bunch of grain that they had stored, and it got folded into other programs.
That's part of the bishop's storehouse and stuff now, right?
Mm-hmm, right. And then in 1980, the Relief Society meetings moved from during the week, like you said, to the Sunday block. And so things really kind of shifted in the correlation and post-correlation era.
And also in the 1970s, I can't remember her name, Barbara something. I can't remember her name right now, but she was the Relief Society president and had been for 30 years, the General Relief Society president. And she was released, and that's when they started calling Relief Society presidents every 5 years.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So we really lost that organizational feeling. And in my opinion, in my lifetime, I have never felt like I was part of a worldwide organization. Now, hear me when I say this. I know that I am.
Sure.
I know that Relief Society is a class and that we are worldwide. There are initiatives that the General Presidency run and are in charge of. I have never felt part of any of that. I've never had to raise money for it. I've never been able to go help give the vaccines or be on a mission trip or a humanitarian aid trip to do that sort of stuff. To my knowledge, it's basically the Relief Society presidency, the General Presidency, and then maybe there are some area women leaders now. Okay. So maybe they're involved if it's in their area, but then it's just the local women. It doesn't touch me at all. Mm-hmm. I hear about it and I'm like, cool, good. I'm not part of an organization that does relief.
Right.
You know, it's hard to connect that because there is no individual participation. And so when I think of what does it mean to be in Relief Society, to me that means I go to a women's class, class full of women every other Sunday at this point, you know, and that's it.
It's a class.
It's a class. I even feel like the work that we do as a Relief Society in the ward is just women's work. It's that gendered role of, well, the baby was born, so you got to take a casserole in, or a funeral happened, so the women have got to cook a meal and help this family. which is good work. Like, I'm not opposed to doing those things because personally, I like to serve in that way. I like to cook meals. I like to do that. Okay. But what I'm saying is, it doesn't feel like it is this worldwide organization that is kind of prompting me to do these things or getting me involved in these things. It's just what you do as a woman to take care of your neighbors.
That's really interesting.
I did ask some friends this earlier today, and one of them said, yeah, we're not part of a worldwide organization. It doesn't feel connected at all. And another one said, for me, I didn't realize that people wanted to, like, that the purpose was to be part of this worldwide organization. Her understood purpose was just to help where you are and make your local people cared for, right, whatever.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, I can see it both ways, but I think when in the 70s, when things were taken away and women lost that kind of ownership and stewardship over an organization, we lost something serious.
Yeah.
Like, there is a loss that occurred, and I don't think it's ever been the same.
Yeah.
And so it feels like when you read that scripture or the quote from Joseph Smith where he said to Emma, I now turn the key to you in the name of God, and this society shall rejoice, and knowledge and intelligence shall flow down from this time henceforth. We got this key turned to us, and then it was locked back up and taken away. And it's like, well, now what? Because this isn't what the intended purpose was.
Yeah.
We're not fulfilling it in what was intended.
And so now it's been every other week for an hour, and now it will be every week for a half an hour. That's kind of the vestigial bits of kind of what's left, almost. That's sad.
Yeah. I mean, do I love having a women's class? Yes, absolutely. And we'll get into this a little later. I think there is still value in having this gendered split of classes, but we have lost something of that organizational whole.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Elders Quorum side, because my reaction to Elders Quorum is a lot like yours to Relief Society. It's a class.
Yeah.
And it has this like air of there's intended to be something more to it. It's a quorum. And I don't know, I don't really feel this like brotherhood with my brothers in the quorum sort of thing. They're the guys that I go to church with. We're in Utah, so like they're the like people that live kind of in our neighborhood.
Yeah, 2-minute radius.
Yeah, pretty much. So, but there's like scriptural basis for this, right? So I went looking in the scriptures, in the Doctrine and Covenants, for like, what's the mission statement of the Elders Quorum? Why does it exist? And there isn't one. There's actually less scriptural support for this than I really thought there was. There are verses about like the duties of an elder, and that's cool. It's baptizing and confirming. It's really high level
anything
stuff.
You have to do during class or like training or anything.
One that always comes up is watching over the church. I don't know what that means.
I mean, somebody locks up the doors at the end of the night,
and it is the Elders Quorum.
Yeah.
There's a sign up sheet. So the clearest thing, and this is actually really good. This came from Stephen L. Richards when he was an apostle in the 1930s. He said a quorum is three things. First, a class, second, a fraternity, and third, a service unit. And when I look at Elders Quorums I've been in, it's actually pretty close.
Yeah.
I would say it's first a class. That's mostly how it manifests.
Yeah.
It's a class that we go to on Sunday. The fraternity, I think of that as being like a social connection or bond. And, we had a bowling activity.
Yeah.
And so, like, I guess that's there. And service unit, yeah, there's opportunities to serve. So, like, I think that's there. I mean, it fits that bill, even if I'm sounding a little underwhelmed by it.
Yeah.
But first and foremost, it's a class, and I will say that the quality of instruction in Elders Quorum varies wildly.
Yeah.
There is a very wide spectrum, and generally, I would describe it as fine. I think it's fine.
Yeah, there's probably some men that prepare something more. Others maybe are a little more lax. Truthfully, it happens in Relief Society as well. But I think it maybe is amplified a little bit in elders quorum. And I don't want to stereotype, but that just seems to be the case.
Yeah. I've sat in really good elders quorum lessons. Most of the ones I've sat in have been fine. They're fine. You know, and we go and we sit on folding chairs in the overflow and we have a lesson. That's fine. And that's mostly kind of my experience with elders quorum. And I'm not trying to say anything negative here, but rather just be descriptive of what is that experience like. Yeah, it's good. It's fine.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah. So this brings up a disparity that I want to talk about.
Okay.
So I heard a voice recording of somebody saying that it was somebody's dad. They were talking to their dad, and they were like, you know, the fact that elders quorum is just meeting in the overflow and we don't have anything right. shows how much the church is forgetting men. And her comment was like, oh my gosh, when we just get breadcrumbs, it's hard for her to hear a man say that men are getting ignored.
Right.
But his point is accurate, that in every single ward I've ever been in, the elders quorum meets in the overflow, on the stage, you know, somewhere like, that they're just shoved into.
Wherever they can find some space.
Yes, some forgotten space. The Relief Society has always had a room. The young women have a room. The young men do not. Typically, like, they have a room, but it's not the same as the young women's room, where there's things on the walls.
Decorated, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, there's like pictures and, you know, whatever. Mm-hmm. And so there is a disparity. And I think that maybe, this is just my thought.
Okay.
Maybe you agree with it or maybe you don't.
Well, let's hear it.
That maybe we have a room we have the soft chairs, we have all of this nice stuff because they are trying to say, like, see, women, you matter. We want to take care of your fragileness. You know, we got to give you something, your niceties, whatever, to protect your dainty bodies or whatever. And like, ugh, that makes me want to barf.
Yeah.
If that's the only reason we have a room. So I think if we as a church are in charge of what our meeting houses look like and how they're designed and right. what their functions are, why is there not a specific room with a chalkboard and a TV for the elders quorum? Why is there not a specific room for the young men that works and is, you know, also has good chairs? My young women's room had good chairs growing up, so I don't know if that's common. But like, why do we not plan around the classes that we know happen there?
Right.
It's very weird to me, and I do feel bad that the men just get shoved wherever they get shoved. It's a disparity that is not okay. I like my soft chairs. I like that I'm in a comfortable room for Relief Society. Why don't we care for everybody in that way?
This is fascinating. I'm the one sitting on the hard chairs in the overflow and had not really thought about it.
We all know that there are men that come into the Relief Society room and take soft chairs out.
Oh, for sure.
There are young men that come and take soft chairs
Definitely
out.
Young men take them.
Because our sons do that sometimes. So I'm just saying, like, I'm grateful for it. I don't want to have our room go away, but right. I think that men should also have a room.
Yeah.
And be cared for in the same way that, like, we're all important in church. Why are we separating out how we're treating people?
Seems really reasonable.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so it says, we just got a comment. Wait, elders quorum doesn't have a room in your building. No.
Does it have one in yours? I've never heard of an elders quorum.
I've literally never seen an elders quorum room.
Yeah.
It's always, we've met on the stage. In the chapel, we've met in the chapel before.
Yeah, which is weird. That's huge for like 20 men to sit in.
Oh, yeah, and men are spread like all the way to the back.
Yeah.
And comment in the chat. Yes, their ward does.
Interesting.
Thank you, Jenny. We're going to start coming to your ward.
Yeah.
Well, I am at least.
I'm fine where I am, but I'd like to sit with Jenny. So.
Awesome. Okay, okay, we got all these things going on in second hour. Alternating weeks always felt like kind of a stopgap to me. Mm-hmm. It never felt really scalable. Like it really was going to last that way. I had to like put a thing in my calendar so I knew which week it was, and I don't know. And I don't feel super convinced on the half hour for each class either. I don't feel convinced that that's like how this is going to land for the rest of ever.
Yeah. I actually got a comment from somebody when I was asking for silver lining about this change. Their silver lining was they were hoping that we would all show up and realize how dumb this is and that it doesn't work, and they'd go back to the alternating weeks. So, you know, some people are hoping it goes away really fast.
Well, there you go. Ultimately, like, I don't think there's a really graceful way out of where we are. We have 1 second hour and we have 2 things, I mean, really 3, but 2 things to put into it. So let's just quickly, let's hit the options here.
Yeah.
One option, and I'm not saying these are good. I'm saying these are the options. One option would be give the whole second hour to Sunday school, and just say we have sacrament meeting, and then we have a Sunday school, you know, instruction in the second hour. This actually makes a lot of sense to me on the surface. It's so clean. It's the same thing every week. Yeah. Sunday school gets its weekly lesson back, which would be great. Clearly, that would mean there's no more Relief Society and Elders Quorum meeting on Sundays. And that seems probably like hugely problematic. Yeah. I would not want to be the person responsible for like cutting Relief Society.
Yeah, for sure. But could it be still split by gender?
Because a gendered Sunday school.
Yeah, because there is, I do know that other churches, like we said, other Christian churches have like, okay, we're having our main thing. Here's children's class. Here's the youth class. Could it be a men's Sunday school and a women's Sunday school?
It could. That's an interesting option.
Because, I mean, I'm okay if we get rid of just talking about the talks. That's all we do in Relief Society and Elders Quorum. So, you know, that's tricky.
Okay. I like that.
Another option that we could do is just keep it how we have it and keep alternating weeks.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
You keep your longer class. It does get into the rhythm. And that's something that a lot of people said is they think that this is being changed specifically for the youth to be able to have consistency with their leaders. Now, I've only ever heard leaders say that they want that consistency. I've never heard a youth say that they're really searching for consistency with their leaders. I'm just saying, I did not see that.
Yes, fair.
But consistency is good, and having the consistency of like being able to follow week to week, and we're not missing out on huge chunks as adults, because the youth are getting it in both young men's or young women's and Sunday school, and if they're in seminary, they're getting it there too. So they're like overdoing the consistency to the youth. But adults, we are missing out on chunks of scripture, because it's too much to cover every 2 weeks.
It's 2 weeks into one lesson every time.
Yeah.
So another option, of course, is the one that's being adopted, which is split second hour into 2 25-minute meetings. And I'm just going to say, we already kind of hit this. People have talked about this to death. The only way this works is if teachers don't try to take the old model of a lesson and just make it shorter.
Yeah, it will not work.
It won't work. You have to make one point, and it has to be about Jesus Christ. And like, even that's going to be tricky with the Old Testament, which we're studying right now. I mean, we've been in some lessons where we're going deep into history and we're learning about like ancient Assyria and all of these things to try to get context for what's happening in, you know, Deuteronomy or whatever. And I just don't know that kind of lesson is going to be able to survive the new schedule.
Yeah. That was one of the things that our Relief Society talked about a lot, is that like we can't go over all of that, and we have to have a question or something that just gives an opportunity for discussion. It has to be more discussion. But then even with that being said, our Relief Society president was saying, but we need to be able to shorten our comments and maybe say 1 or 2, because there are people that will want to dominate the conversation.
That's true.
And their comments go on and on and on. And it's like, maybe don't tell the whole story of how you got to this, but tell the point of your comment, just the same as don't tell the whole lesson, but give us the point of the lesson.
Right.
You know, so, and my comment was, because they were talking about like some teachers will feel that if they don't prepare a whole 25-minute lesson, then they will be left in the dark, because they'll show up and no one will say anything, and then they don't have anything prepared. You know, if they come with one question and it lasts like 5 minutes. And so my comment was, then that is a lot of responsibility on us to actually be willing to be vulnerable and to share and to speak up and to actually go deep with something.
Right.
And not stay at that surface level that we're all concerned is going to happen.
Yep.
So, yeah. Another thing is to possibly move Relief Society or Elders Quorum outside of the Sunday block.
Okay.
Take it back to the 80s or
the pre-80s. Yeah.
I don't see how that is possible with
sure.
work schedules, the way kids are just full up with sports and music and, you know, all the things. I don't see that ever happening, that we go back to multiple day
I wouldn't think so.
Stuff. But that is how a lot of churches do it. I was actually looking, there's a friend in our neighborhood that goes to a non-denominational church, Christian church here in our city. And so I was looking at her church schedule to see what they offered.
Okay, great.
And looking in just our specific area, there were men's Bible study classes. There was a specific class for people coming from the LDS church to Christianity, which I thought was really interesting that that's how they worded it. You're leaving the Latter-day Saint church and going to Christianity.
Perfect.
So, and there was like a women's hiking group, and there was, I know that like that friend hosts a Bible study in her class, and people from her church, in her home, and people from her church come to that. So I know that there are things that they do outside of church. Like church is a 1-hour meeting on Sunday, and then they have all of these other things during the week that people can join.
I mean, there is a really interesting case to be made there that we're overburdening the block. Mm-hmm. With like a lot of things that maybe don't need to be on Sunday. Again, I don't think we go back to that pre-1980 schedule, but that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, one other option, and you kind of talked about this, was do we combine Relief Society and Elders Quorum more often? And I mean, this just comes back to like, do we end up with Sunday school that's like not Sunday school, but it's still Sunday school? Because like, I think that's what we end up with a lot of times now is we have Sunday school, and then every other week we have like, it's basically like we're in 2 different rooms teaching the same lesson, and you know, are we getting benefit out of even being split at that point? So I don't know that option really solves those problems, but worth mentioning.
Well, and we will talk a bit more about that, of why maybe that gender split does have some benefits. But I just wanted to share some more of the silver linings that some people that responded to my stories said. A lot of people pointed out that having this new structure, new format, will actually really benefit kids who live with split custody happening. Where some weeks they're with their mom and some weeks they're with their dad, because now they will be getting both Sunday school and young men or young women's each week. Whereas before, in one ward, they're only getting one thing, in one ward, they're getting the other. If they even go to church in both wards or both places. Right. And so this will benefit those kids. Somebody said it's less time with bad teachers. So fair. I hope, I have heard that teacher training stuff is going to be coming back and be more of a frequent thing. So hopefully we won't have horrible teachers. Time will tell.
We'll see.
The continuity with lessons.
I think that's a big one.
Yeah, like we were saying, of skipping out multiple chapters or topics or people, even, you know, main stories in the Bible or scriptures. It'll be good to have continuity. Some people have pointed out that this is going to be really good for people with ADHD. That having shorter lessons and moving more often is actually better for their brains, and it fits more into what is comfortable for them. You know,
that's a good point. I think I won't be mad that we're like keeping things moving. That actually, there's something to that.
And then the last one I want to share is just more to the point teaching. So less like long, boring lessons that get lost in the weeds of the history that is cool to know, but like we're not in a Bible study. It's a very different class. And so more to the point teaching, hopefully that will be beneficial.
Yeah, awesome.
So let's talk about these gendered classes and why they are helpful. Even though we're in like in Elders Quorum and in Relief Society, we're maybe having the same lesson, we're talking about the same talk,
yep.
which doesn't happen week to week, but I think a lot of wards do try to line that up.
Okay, yep.
We are not having the same lesson, right?
Okay.
The things that are talked about from a woman's perspective are going to be totally different from a man's perspective. And so we are, if there is classroom participation,
right.
we are having different lessons. And I think that that's a good thing. I think I personally would prefer to hear from women when I'm at church. Like, we have sacrament meeting where we get talks from men and women, and I really would hope that those are actually meetings with men and women, because too often it's one gender or the other,
right.
and we're leaving out people. But you know, I think that it is good to have a class with people that you deeply, innately understand.
And I want to be sensitive to, I don't want any women to be in a situation where they're not wanting to speak up in a room that's women and men. If it's easier for them to speak up when it's just women, or easier for men to speak up when it's just men, you know, want to make space for those things. You know, I don't know that I've ever really paid attention to if the discussion that we have in Elders Quorum is men specific. It probably is in some way.
And we talked about boats in the last one a lot longer than we ever do in Relief Society. So, just kidding, that's a stereotype.
A lot of boat talk. Yeah, it kind of makes me want to pay attention and be like, oh, is that really it? Because it feels very neutral. It feels generic, not in a bad way, but in like a non-gendered way.
Yeah.
And that's why, you know, I make that comment of if we're on the other side of those accordion doors, having the same lesson and making the same comments, that's not worth it. We should just combine at that point. But I love the point you're making that they're not the same thing.
Yeah. And we had a really weird lesson one time where our Relief Society teacher was about to start, and suddenly those accordion doors opened, and they said, the men are just going to sit back here and listen. And this woman was coming in, and she was sitting next to me, and she's like, oh no, I want my women time, and I will not feel comfortable speaking up if the whole back 2 rows are men just observing. Like, that was weird.
What is that?
It was very weird. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
So I do think that there are people that are more comfortable speaking up when it's a specific gender. And maybe that is something we can encourage men to do more, is to be more vulnerable at church and make the classes mean something, make that Elders Quorum class mean something to a group of men.
Yeah.
You know, if you talk about how this affects you as men in the church, that is something different that probably doesn't get talked about hardly ever.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I've often heard people say, like, you know, as a feminist, I have heard people say, like, well, you know, there's gender roles for a reason, because, you know, God created men and women differently, and so that's why, you know, XYZ thing happens. And yes, I understand God created us differently. And I don't necessarily buy into the reasons why they're telling me, you know, something can't happen just because we're different.
Right.
But I do appreciate having different classes for that reason, that we are created differently. And I think it's important also to mention there is a struggle, a really tender spot right now in the church with transgender people.
Right.
They are supposed to attend the class of the gender that they're assigned at birth. And that is very frustrating for a lot of people and harmful. And I think we can do better in making space for transgender people to attend where they feel comfortable. Yep. And we should be welcoming and open our arms to whoever it is that is coming through our doors.
Yep. That's a great call out. So let's kind of put a bow on this. Where do we go from here?
I mean, we just cannot compress a 1-hour lesson into a 25-minute lesson.
Maybe if you talk really fast.
Please no.
It's like listening to a podcast on
2 times.
Yeah.
I hope that we get away from lecture type lessons. Mm-hmm. It is not okay to just get up and lecture and there's no reason we should be going to church and getting a lecture that second hour.
Right.
At all.
Well, and you mentioned vulnerability, which is often missing from our lessons. Not always. There's good lessons, there's comments where people are being vulnerable, and those are the best ones. Mm-hmm. And sometimes this is a really hard thing. Like, I don't always want to be the one being vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And so, maybe that makes me a hypocrite in that, but I want to have that in our meetings. If there was one thing that should happen in our meetings, it's being fed and being included and being encouraged and blessed and remembered because the group met.
Yeah.
How were we more fed because that group met on that Sunday? I don't have all the answers on how to do this. I don't have any of the answers on how to do this, but I hope that we can find a way with this split second hour to be fed and feel like we belong.
Yeah. I know in our Relief Society, we just got a new president, and she is very concerned and really wanting to bring back the community feel that we have lost in our wards.
Love that.
We have had so many changes with the structural church, what it looks like, taking away different activities and, changing how often enrichment is or what that looks like, or, just different things. And we've lost a lot of community. And I especially feel that loss in Utah because everybody has family here. Everybody has mission friends or college friends or friends they grew up with, or, and you don't, at least I haven't felt a desire to go to the ward for the social connection in the ways that I did, for example, when we lived in Washington or really any of the other places we've lived.
Yeah.
Because I needed those people at church. They were my only connections.
Right.
And I found best friends in those wards. And it has been a different experience living in Utah. And so I think if we can keep in mind the community and communing with God, with our neighbors next to us, I think we can have some really beautiful experiences in this shortened lesson time if we're willing to be open and really build Zion together with the group that we have.
I love that. Let's end it right there.
All right.
As always, you can find us on Instagram. I'm at From the Overflow.
And I'm at The Vision Beautiful. And you can find both of us at And Yet We Believe. What do we?
Hopefully we belong as well. But the
just
podcast
changing the name of the podcast.
And Yet We Believe.
It's
Love
late.
it. All right. We'll see you all next time.
See ya.